What if your garden had a backup plan when tomatoes fail, lettuce bolts, or a sudden drought shows up at the worst possible time? In this video, we're taking a closer look at 10 quietly reliable perennial food plants that come back year after year with very little fuss. These are the kinds of crops that don't demand constant replanting or perfect conditions. Once established, they keep producing, even when the weather is unpredictable or your schedule gets busy. If you've ever felt frustrated by starting over every spring, this is the kind of long-term solution that can change the way you think about growing food. These climate-resilient plants may not be flashy or trendy, but they are dependable. They handle heat, cold, poor soil, and inconsistent watering better than most annual vegetables. That makes them a smart choice for anyone who wants a more stable harvest without putting in endless work. Whether you're gardening in a small backyard, a suburban lot, or building a more self-sufficient homestead, these perennials act like a built-in safety net. When other crops struggle, these keep showing up. Ten quietly reliable food plants that act as a backup when main crops struggle. Perennial plant. 1. Asparagus, the patient perennial that feeds you for decades. When annual vegetables struggle or completely fail because of unpredictable weather, asparagus keeps doing what it has always done, showing up again every spring. This hardy perennial builds a deep, established root system that helps it handle dry spells, heavy rain, and temperature swings far better than many shallow-rooted crops. While lettuce wilts and tomatoes stall in extreme heat or cold snaps, asparagus stays steady underground, storing energy and preparing for the next season. In a resilient backyard food garden, it becomes less of a seasonal experiment and more of a long-term strategy. Instead of replanting year after year and hoping for perfect conditions, you're investing in a crop designed to adapt and return reliably. Once established, asparagus can produce tender spears for 15 to 20 years with very little maintenance. That kind of consistency makes it a smart food security plant for anyone thinking beyond a single growing season. It prefers well-drained soil and full sun, and after the first few years of patience, it rewards growers with dependable harvests each spring. Because it emerges early, asparagus helps fill the fresh food gap before most annual vegetables are ready to pick. For anyone building a perennial survival garden or a climate-resilient homestead, asparagus stands out as one of the most dependable staple vegetables you can grow. Low effort, long lifespan, and steady returns year after year. 2. Sea Kale Crambe maritima, the coastal survivor with edible shoots. Sea Kale Crambe maritima is one of those overlooked perennial vegetables that truly deserves a comeback in today's food gardens. Originally native to coastal regions, it naturally thrives in sandy soil, tolerates salt spray, and handles tough, growing conditions that often cause common leafy greens to fail. This built-in resilience makes sea kale an excellent backup crop, especially when lettuce or spinach struggle in poor soil, extreme heat, or unpredictable weather. If you garden in an area with challenging conditions, this plant can offer stability when other crops fall short. One of the biggest advantages of sea kale is how much you can harvest from a single plant. The young blanched shoots are tender and mild, the leaves can be cooked like other greens, and even the flower buds are edible. That means multiple harvests throughout the growing season without replanting year after year. Unlike shallow-rooted annual vegetables, sea kale develops a deep taproot that reaches nutrients and moisture far below the surface. This allows it to stay productive during dry periods and reduces the need for constant watering or fertilizing. For gardeners interested in sustainable gardening and low-maintenance edible landscaping, sea kale checks a lot of boxes. It combines practical food production with attractive foliage that looks great in garden beds or mixed borders. Once established, it requires minimal care compared to many annual crops. By adding sea kale to your garden, you're not just growing another vegetable. You're investing in a long-term, reliable food source that supports a more resilient and self-sufficient growing system. 3. Walking onions. Egyptian walking onions, the onion that plants itself. Walking onions, also known as Egyptian walking onions, are one of the most self-sufficient perennial food plants you can grow in a backyard garden. Unlike regular onions that depend mainly on seeds or sets, these plants produce small top bulbils at the end of their stalks. As the bulbils grow heavier, the stalk naturally bends down to the soil, where they take root and start a new plant. Over time, this process allows the onions to slowly walk across your garden bed. This unusual growth pattern makes them a smart choice for gardeners who want low-maintenance crops and a more resilient, low-input food system. Another big advantage of walking onions is their toughness. They can handle cold winters, bounce back in early spring, and continue producing year after year without needing to be replanted. You can harvest them in several ways. Snip the green stalks like scallions, dig up the underground bulbs, or collect the top sets for replanting or cooking. Because they are perennial, you don't have to start from scratch every season. Once established, they become a reliable part of your garden that asks for very little but gives back consistently. Walking onions are especially valuable in a survival garden or self-reliant backyard setup. When heavy rain, pests, or disease damage traditional bulb onions, these hardy plants often keep going. They multiply on their own, steadily expanding and creating a renewable source of fresh flavor for your kitchen. For anyone looking to build food security at home, walking onions serve as a dependable backup crop. They offer stability, steady harvests, and peace of mind, all while fitting easily into an everyday American garden. Four. Lovage, the deep-rooted herb that outlasts stress. Lovage is an old-fashioned perennial herb that many modern gardeners overlook, yet it's one of the toughest plants you can grow. While trendy herbs often demand perfect soil, steady watering, and ideal weather, lovage keeps going with far less attention. Its deep root system allows it to pull moisture and nutrients from well below the surface, which helps it handle heat and short dry spells. The plant grows tall and sturdy, often reaching impressive heights in a single season. It can handle partial shade and uneven soil conditions much better than many annual culinary herbs, making it a practical choice for gardeners who want dependable results without constant maintenance. One of the biggest advantages of lovage is its resilience in a climate-resilient food garden. As weather patterns become less predictable, plants that can adapt are more valuable than ever. Lovage doesn't collapse at the first sign of stress. Instead, it continues producing strong growth even when conditions aren't perfect. That durability makes it an excellent companion plant, especially in mixed beds where other herbs may struggle. It fills vertical space, attracts beneficial insects, and adds structure to the garden without demanding extra care. For gardeners who want stability and steady harvests, lovage quietly delivers season after season. Beyond its toughness, lovage also stands out in the kitchen. The leaves, stems, and even seeds carry a bold celery-like flavor that works well in soups, stews, salads, and stocks. Because it returns year after year and grows into a substantial plant, you get consistent harvests without replanting every spring. This saves time, effort, and money over the long run. For anyone building a sustainable herb garden or a perennial kitchen garden, lovage becomes a reliable flavor backup when more sensitive crops fall behind. It's simple, productive, and surprisingly versatile. Exactly the kind of plant that earns its place in a practical, long-term garden plan. 5. Chaya tree spinach, the heat-tolerant leafy green. Chaya, often called Chaya or tree spinach, is a tropical perennial leafy green known for its impressive productivity in hot climates. Unlike common spinach that quickly bolts and turns bitter when temperatures rise, Chaya actually prefers the heat and keeps producing generous harvests of nutrient-dense leaves all season long. This makes it a reliable option for gardeners dealing with long, hot summers. Chaya is also highly tolerant of drought and can grow in poor or sandy soils where many other vegetables struggle. As weather patterns become more unpredictable and water resources more limited, plants like Chaya are becoming increasingly important for home gardeners and small-scale growers alike. Once established, Chaya grows into a sturdy, woody shrub that can reach several feet tall and wide. It requires minimal maintenance and can be harvested repeatedly by simply cutting back the young leaves and tender stems. This regrowth habit allows gardeners to enjoy a steady supply of fresh greens without constantly replanting. The leaves must always be cooked before eating to ensure they are safe for consumption, but once prepared, they are highly nutritious and versatile in the kitchen. Many people use cooked Chaya in soups, stews, sautés, and even smoothies after boiling. In a food security garden focused on perennial vegetables and climate-smart crops, Chaya stands out as a dependable long-term investment. Because it continues producing year after year, it reduces the need for seeds, frequent watering, and ongoing soil amendments. When traditional greens fail due to extreme heat or inconsistent rainfall, Chaya can step in as a reliable backup. For anyone building resilience into their garden, this hardy leafy green offers both stability and consistent nutrition with relatively low effort. 6. Good King Henry, the old-school perennial spinach alternative. Good King Henry is a traditional European perennial vegetable that once played an important role in cottage gardens and small homesteads. Long before modern supermarkets made leafy greens available year-round, families relied on dependable plants like this to provide steady nutrition. Unlike common spinach that must be replanted every season, Good King Henry comes back year after year. It handles cool climates well and doesn't require constant attention, making it a practical choice for gardeners who want reliable harvests without starting from seed each spring. For anyone building a resilient perennial food system, this plant offers consistency with far less yearly effort. One of the reasons gardeners appreciate Good King Henry is its versatility in the kitchen. The young leaves can be cooked just like spinach, steamed, sautéed, or added to soups and casseroles. The tender spring shoots are often compared to asparagus in both flavor and texture, giving you another crop from the same plant. As it matures, it develops a strong and deep root system that helps it thrive even in soil that isn't perfect. Over time, it becomes more productive and dependable, rewarding patience with better harvests each season. In a sustainable backyard garden focused on food security and low-maintenance crops, Good King Henry serves as a reliable backup when annual leafy greens struggle with heat, pests, or poor soil conditions. Because it is perennial, it reduces the need for repeated planting, watering, and soil disturbance. This not only saves time, but also supports healthier soil structure in the long run. For gardeners who value practicality and long-term planning, Good King Henry stands out as a smart addition that delivers steady results with minimal upkeep. 7. Scarlet runner beans, the climbing protein source. Scarlet runner beans are more than decorative vines with bright red blooms. They are a highly productive and flexible food crop that deserves more attention in home gardens. In colder regions, many gardeners grow them as annuals, replanting each year. However, in milder climates, they are technically perennial, meaning they can regrow from their roots season after season. This ability to adapt makes them especially useful in climate-resilient gardens and permaculture systems. When weather patterns become unpredictable, having a crop that can handle change is a major advantage. Scarlet runner beans offer that extra layer of security for growers who want reliable food production. One of their biggest strengths is the variety of harvest options they provide. When picked young, the pods are tender and can be cooked much like green beans. If left to mature, the beans inside become large, hearty, and rich in protein, making them a great pantry staple. This means a single planting can supply fresh vegetables early on and dry beans later in the season. Their vigorous climbing habit also helps maximize vertical space. They grow well on trellises, fences, or garden arches, making them ideal for small homesteads, backyard gardens, and food forests where space matters. Another reason scarlet runner beans stand out is their resilience. In seasons when other legumes struggle due to sudden temperature swings, poor soil conditions, or inconsistent rainfall, these beans often continue producing. That reliability can make a real difference for households aiming for greater food independence. By adding scarlet runner beans to the garden, growers gain not only a beautiful vine, but also a dependable multi-purpose crop that supports long-term sustainability and steady harvests. (8) Sorrel, French sorrel, the early season tangy green. French sorrel is one of the first perennial leafy greens to show up in early spring, often pushing through the soil, while many annual vegetables haven't even started to sprout. It handles cool temperatures with ease and grows well in partial shade, which makes it a dependable option when the weather is still unpredictable. For home gardeners who want to stretch their harvest season and make better use of their space, sorrel plays an important role. It helps bridge the gap between winter and the main summer growing season, giving you something fresh to pick when garden beds might otherwise sit empty. The leaves have a bright, lemony flavor that brings a fresh kick to everyday meals. You can chop them into salads, stir them into soups, or blend them into sauces for an easy boost of flavor and nutrients. Sorrel adds variety to your diet at a time of year when choices are often limited. Beyond taste, it's also packed with vitamins and minerals, making it a smart addition to a well-rounded kitchen garden. Having a plant that offers both strong flavor and solid nutrition early in the season is a practical win for any grower. Once established, French sorrel is low maintenance and keeps producing year after year. With occasional dividing and basic care, it stays productive and healthy for a long time. In a sustainable perennial garden built for resilience, sorrel stands out as a reliable early harvest crop. While other plants are still getting established, sorrel is already ready to pick, helping you stay consistent with homegrown food and making your garden more productive overall. (9) Rhubarb, the cold hardy classic that keeps coming back. Rhubarb is a long-lived perennial vegetable that has been a staple in traditional kitchen gardens and self-sufficient homesteads for generations. Known for its toughness, it is extremely cold-hardy and performs best in temperate climates. Even after long, freezing winters, rhubarb reliably comes back each spring without needing to be replanted. For gardeners dealing with unpredictable weather or late frosts, this kind of consistency matters. While other crops may struggle with sudden temperature swings, rhubarb continues to establish itself year after year. That reliability makes it a smart choice for anyone who wants a low-risk plant in their garden plan. The thick, tart stalks are what make rhubarb stand out. They are commonly used in pies, jams, preserves, and sauces, adding a bright, tangy flavor that balances well with sugar and sweet fruits like strawberries. In many American kitchens, rhubarb desserts are tied to early summer traditions. Beyond baking, the stalks can also be cooked down into compotes or used in savory sauces for meats. It is important to note that only the stalks are edible, while the leaves should never be consumed. This simple knowledge allows gardeners to safely enjoy one of the earliest harvests of the season. Once planted in rich, well-drained soil, rhubarb can remain productive for decades with very little maintenance. It benefits from occasional dividing and compost, but overall it is far less demanding than many annual vegetables. In a climate-resilient perennial food garden, rhubarb plays an important role as a dependable backup crop. When fruit trees have a poor year or tender vegetables fail due to extreme heat or cold snaps, rhubarb still delivers. For growers looking to build a steady, long-term food supply, this hardy perennial is a practical and worthwhile addition. 10. Turkish Rocket, Bunias orientalis, the tough perennial green. Turkish Rocket Bunias orientalis is an underappreciated perennial edible plant that deserves more attention from home gardeners and small-scale growers. Known for its toughness and adaptability, this plant handles poor soil, dry weather, and general neglect far better than many common leafy greens. While lettuce, spinach, and other tender crops often struggle without rich soil and regular watering, Turkish Rocket keeps growing with minimal care. That makes it a strong candidate for low-input food systems, especially for gardeners who want reliable harvests without constant maintenance. In a survival garden or resilient homestead landscape, Turkish Rocket can serve as a steady source of fresh greens when more delicate crops fail or bolt in the heat. One of the plant's biggest strengths is its deep root system. As it matures, those roots allow it to reach moisture far below the surface, increasing its drought tolerance year after year. Once established, it rarely needs replanting and can produce reliably for seasons to come. For anyone focused on long-term food security, climate resilience, or expanding their perennial vegetable selection, Turkish Rocket offers dependable performance in challenging conditions. It may not be flashy, but it quietly delivers consistent harvests with very little effort. Conclusion. Building a resilient food garden isn't just about growing the most popular vegetables. It's about planting crops that quietly perform when others struggle. Perennial vegetables like asparagus, sea kale, walking onions, chaya, rhubarb, and sorrel create long-term stability because they establish deep roots, adapt to stress, and reduce the need for constant replanting. Over time, they transform your garden from a seasonal experiment into a dependable food-producing ecosystem. If you're serious about climate-smart gardening, backyard food security, or creating a low-maintenance homestead garden, start adding these reliable perennial plants into your growing system. You don't have to replace your favorite annual crops, but giving your garden a backup layer of hardy perennials can make all the difference in uncertain seasons. Sometimes the most powerful plants aren't the loudest ones. They're the ones that quietly keep feeding you year after year.